Here at the Women's Crisis and Family Outreach Center, we use a type of therapy called EMDR, which stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. This is a treatment intervention that we use specifically for people who are exposed to some sort of trauma. It can be used for children, adolescents, and adults for any type of trauma they might have experienced, whether it's abuse, a car accident, any loss that they've experienced. To tell you a little bit about EMDR and how it works is basically whenever somebody has an experience that's traumatizing, it impacts their belief systems about themselves and about the world around them. And what EMDR does is it takes that experience and helps the person reprocess it using a different part of the brain. Oftentimes, when we experience trauma, that traumatic memory gets locked into the emotional side of our brain. That's why when you hear about post-traumatic stress disorder, you hear about people having flashbacks or nightmares or a startle response whenever they're triggered to remember that trauma. And what EMDR does is it helps them process it so that emotional reactivity becomes less, if not completely gone. A good example of how we use this is if somebody was in an abusive situation. They might have been exposed to something that was extremely scary for them, and the belief that they may have associated with that trauma is, I am not safe. So what we do is we help them reprocess that experience and come out with a more positive belief about themselves, which might be, I can protect myself, I am safe. Therefore, they can live their lives having a more positive belief about themselves. To show you a little bit of the equipment that we use for this, this is called a bilateral stimulation light bar. And what we're doing is we're actually processing memories using both sides of the brain simultaneously. So we're bilaterally stimulating the brain while processing this memory. We can do it with the eye movement, watching the light trail back and forth. We also use, these are pulsing pads to where when you hold on to them, there's actually a vibration that if somebody has seizures, we typically don't use the light, we'll have them hold on to these. And it does stimulate the body on each side in their hands, which does the same thing the light bar would do essentially. We also do have headphones. If somebody's sensitive to touch, they can also use the headphones where there's an audio beep going back and forth. And all three ways work equally as well and helps that person reprocess that memory with the more logical and rational part of the brain. We found that this is a very, very effective treatment intervention, can shorten the duration of therapy quite substantially. The important piece is that people are ready to be able to process the trauma that they've experienced, and they can be very successful in that treatment.